Welcome, friends,
to the How-To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
And I'm Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear! That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields,
we're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you'd better make the most of it.
Yes, and...
hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Here
we are kind of stooges.
We're very stoogey.
It makes sense.
Yeah. The three pudges.
The three punches. How's that? What does that have to do with a stooge?
What's a stooge?
A stooge is kind of...
It all ends in J.
A stooge is kind of a shemp.
I thought a stooge was somewhere in between a chair and a stool.
I think 3 shemps equals a stooge.
Yeah. That was... anyway, long story
in the conversion.
About the shemps. I'll tell this shemp story another time. Here we are, episode 143, guys. It's a lot of fun. Before we get to that, though, holy smokes, we had a meetup. We record on Sundays. We had a meetup yesterday, and
it's a Zoom.
Yeah, that's right. It was super fun.
Yeah, it was great. It was amazing to see everybody's faces. It was a lot of fun. We did it at noon so we could give our international listeners a bit of a chance to not be up at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
At least one of them was, though, right? Somebody was up.
Yeah, our friend Paul Freeland was because he's in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So it was like 2:30 in the morning for him.
We can't do it easy. We can't make it easy for everybody. Somebody's got to be left out.
But Taru in Finland and Hadar. We're going to say this right from now on.
This whole time.
Yeah,
Hadar,
it was my fault.
In Israel, were able to join us, and as well as a lot of our listeners here in the U.S. and Canada. And it was really, really, really the UK, New Zealand, Australia. It was great to have everybody there and see everybody's shining faces, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody, for dialing in. We'll for sure do it again when Doug comes up with some more jokes, which is probably not for a while.
And Aunt Andrea administered it instead of me, so it was a technical success.
Yeah, so people were allowed in before halftime, which is awesome. But thanks so much. We're going to do it again. Love you guys so much. But before that, we got another show. And, it's a fun one. This one has some twists and turns.
You're going to call it fun? Okay, we'll go with fun. We'll go with fun. We'll go with fun
in the middle.
Doug's bit is fun.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're starting out with me and my whole thing. There is a trigger warning. It doesn't end well.
Yeah. Whenever we talk about cults, you know by now.
Yeah.
That terrible shit is going to go down. So Dan's got a classic of the form.
Yeah, and then I'm going to break down the life and times of Lord Xenu and see what we can learn from him.
Yes, Doug does the deepest dive anyone's ever done on Xenu, and
that includes LRH.
There will be math. And then I'm going to talk about symbols, and I'm going to talk about why we decide to venerate terrible people, and that we should probably not do that anymore.
Indeed.
Oh, that's weird. Just let them all be.
Yeah. Well, let birds shit on them, whatever. So
there's a crappy statue of Parley P. Pratt about 3 blocks from here with my name on it.
Go get it, Doug. So
throw it in the river.
Without further ado, let us do the voodoo we do.
Tally ho. Uncle Mark.
Yeah. What's up?
What would this show be without cults?
Shorter. It would be quite a bit shorter.
Yeah.
would need fewer trigger warnings for sure. But we wouldn't totally eliminate them.
Yeah. No. Will there ever be a day when we're like, well, that was that. There was the last cult.
I don't foresee that day, but it could happen.
It's not today. I know that.
Today's not the day, no.
Today is not that day.
Although, the cult that we're going to be talking about, gentlemen, is extinct. It is gone.
Oh, thank God for that.
So we don't have to worry about it.
Bring it back.
But it is interesting and of interest to us because we three were all raised in the warmth and righteousness of God's true and obvious church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I've never heard it described as obvious, but I like it.
It's a long title for a church, to be sure, and one that seems to promise a lot. And while some might say that our church has fallen a little short of sainthood, at least they followed through by making sure that church attendance, that the experience of attending church there was as long and tedious and confusing as its name. Well, many of our listeners might not know that ours was only one faction of the Mormon movement.
What?
Incidentally, a Mormon movement is where you poop with the door open so that your companions can see that you're not masturbating. No,
So your companion can see your Melchizedek.
Hey! Deep cut. Okay, so no, there are other Mormons out there, and it's actually lots of them. In fact, Joseph Smith Jr.'s rhapsodic 1830s Jacobean-era cosplay novel, The Book of Mormon, has spawned well over 100 offshoots, and offshoots of offshoots, each claiming to be the true Word of God and the real heir to Smith's legacy. And why not? Who wouldn't want to be the keeper of the keys to one of the dopiest theologies ever presented to mankind? The largest schism in Mormon history happened right after Joseph Smith died, though a few happened while he was alive. It was entirely unclear who was supposed to take over as prophet of the church. Joseph's first wife, Emma, contended that it was supposed to be Joseph's son and namesake who should take over. Never mind the fact that he was only 12 at the time.
Yeah,
they'd figure that out.
JS3, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Also, there was never any polygamy, and I'm the only wife, okay? Can we all agree to that? Anyway, it is from that Mormon offshoot, which is now known as which was then known as the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or RLDS, because they were not into the brevity of the original church, and wanted to add a word. It was from that Mormon offshoot, which is the Shia to our Brighamite Sunnis, that today's protagonist springs. Fast forward to 1950 and the birth of Jeffrey Lundgren.
When America was great.
Back in those days, right,
Yeah.
Correct. Jeffrey was born in Independence, Missouri, which is where the RLDS Church is headquartered. He was beaten and abused by his peach of a dad. He became quite a loner throughout his schooling years, and his dad was obsessed with the boy becoming manly and not showing weakness. They spent time hunting and learning about guns because if there's one thing you want in society, it's self-conscious loners with esteem problems who are trained in weaponry.
Yeah.
It's an
worked out
American
great
tradition.
in America so far.
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Lundgren enrolled at the Central Missouri State University, Go Mules, and met young Alice Keeler. Oh, mules, yeah. Well, actually, since you ask, the mules are the men. The women are known as the Jennies.
Oh,
Is that a female mule?
I think so. Yeah, and they have two different mascots. The guy in the suit is known as Mo the mule, and they have a live mule named Man Cow. So
well,
okay.
he puts the ass in mascot. It works on so many levels.
No, just the one. Anyway, there's an important fact about all of Mormonism that folks need to know for any of the story to make sense, and that is that Mormons believe in prophecy.
Yes.
And not just from their head prophet. They believe in personal revelation. So, theoretically, any worthy member might hear directly from God.
Any worthy member with a penis.
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah.
It's very American in that way. We're all extremely important here. So,
Yeah.
There you go. It's kind of a problem. So, when somebody in a minor position of authority in the RLDS church told Alice Keeler that God had impressed upon him that she would marry a great leader of the church when she was young, she took that shit to heart. She watched every guy she dated, wondering, could this be the one? Does he seem like he'll be a great church leader? When she met Jeffrey, She felt like she had found her leader. He was everything you look for in a religious big shot. He had a strange look in his eye, a domineering demeanor, lots of big opinions, and he studied the scriptures a lot. So she was in.
Yeah, he checks all the boxes pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
Well, unless you're going to tell me he was not a sex pest.
Oh, it'll get there.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
But yes, he was actually.
My pencil is hovering over that box.
Just call bingo. You're fine.
Okay.
The two got married in 1970. Alice got pregnant, and Jeffrey, in order to avoid the draft, or maybe to avoid parenthood, enlisted in the Navy and was sent off to Vietnam. Alice was left to take care of the kid and then a second one alone. I assume the second one came when he was on furlough or something. Anyway, I'm going to skip their early marriage, except to note that he was not an awesome husband. He controlled every aspect of her life, citing scriptures about women being subservient and shutting the hell up. He was abusive, and like all the great abusers, made sure that she knew that it was her fault that he hit her because she wasn't following Jesus' commandments to always make her man happy. But don't worry, religion's a tool for good, right?
He seems pretty on brand.
Yeah.
Yep. So far, so good. We're going down a well-trodden path.
Yeah.
Alice readily submitted to Jeffrey's rebukes, believing that he was, in fact, just following the scripture, and after all, he was going to be a great leader in the church. So, textbook narcissist had found someone easy to manipulate. It truly was a match made in Mormon heaven. And thus began a career of religious manipulations. While he was in the Navy, a fellow seaman had taken an interest in Jeffrey's constant scripture study, and before you knew it, Jeffrey had converted the guy. This gave Jeffrey a lovely sense of how easily he could convince certain minds of his religious rectitude. And Alice had told him about the prophecy of her husband being the great leader, which he took deeply to heart. What narcissist doesn't love a narrative of grandeur? So, the Lofgrens, with all of this grandeur in mind, moved themselves to Kirtland, Ohio, which is a place of huge importance in Mormon history as one of Joseph Smith's early church headquarters. It's also the site of the first Mormon temple, which is now owned and run by the RLDS Church, much to the shock and chagrin of many Utah Mormons who take their family vacations to important church locations. That's usually the first time they've ever heard anything about divisions in the church's history. Kirtland...
Is that because when they swipe their Temple Recommend Mag card, it doesn't accept?
Right, exactly. Or just because they go there thinking they're going to have to do that and carrying their temple clothes in a little suitcase, and then they're just waved right in without any problem. So it's shocking either way. In Kirtland, the Lundgrens lived in a church-owned house next door to the temple, and Jeffrey started working as a tour guide there. He also became treasurer for the tourist attraction. Jeff had also become a teacher within the church, where he often clashed with higher-ups on matters of doctrine. And that is because old Jeff had discovered a new way of interpreting the scriptures, which he called chiasmus, or chiasmic interpretation. Now, Jeffrey didn't make up the word chiasmus. He wasn't even the first to apply it to scripture. He was the first, however, to wildly misunderstand what the concept was and turn it into something that's nothing like what that word means. So, chiasmus is a rhetorical term. It just refers to mirrored parallel phrases. So, a scriptural example would be, "He that findeth his life shall lose it, and he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it." That's in Matthew.
Okay.
Now, it's just two repeated concepts, but the order is reversed in the second one. Boom, chiasmus. That is not what Jeff was talking about. Near as I can figure it, his idea was that he would look for places in the scripture where there were two similar sentences on either side of a middle sentence. And those similar sentences would prove that the middle sentences was God's true word, because God loves mirrors.
What?
So, or something like that. It was
Yeah.
a concept that was just convoluted enough that only he could really understand it, which is perfect for anyone interested in self-aggrandizement and a great way to get a cult going. And before you know it, Jeff was getting followers. He started convincing RLDS members that he had the latest and greatest word of God. And this chiasmus was the key to it all. Meanwhile, he was bumping heads with church leadership. He eventually lost his job at the temple when they discovered that over a few years he had embezzled over $40,000 from them. But eager to avoid a scandal and probably fearful of Jeffrey's growing power in the area, the church didn't press charges. They just fired him. Jeffrey moved his family to a farmhouse outside of town and brought most of his followers to live there with him. He had amassed a congregation of around 20 people, including individuals, couples, and even families. Families like Dennis and Cheryl Avery and their 3 daughters, Trina, Becky, and Karen. Here's the thing, though. Remember how Jeffrey's dad had beaten an obsession with weakness into Jeffrey? And remember how Jeffrey was an epic misogynist? Well, the Averys were all kind of backwards to that. Cheryl was the forceful one in the family. It was she, not Dennis, who liked Jeffrey's message and convinced the family to join the group. In Jeffrey's eyes, Dennis was a weak man and Cheryl wore the pants. So even though they followed his teachings faithfully, Jeffrey was not at all pleased with the Averys. So much so that he didn't cult them up very well at all. The Averys didn't live on the compound, and Jeffrey only had them come in to 1 or 2 torturous scripture study sessions a week, whereas everybody else had to go daily. These sessions could last hours, especially if anybody dared to push back against their glorious leader's teachings. Then he would take extended periods of time to harangue them for their apostasy. Classic cult stuff. Nevertheless, the Averys, like all members of the cult, gave all their money to Lundgren, and he promised to pay all their bills and whatnot. Oddly, trusting a guy with a history of theft and embezzlement, as well as frivolous spending, to pay your bills for you doesn't always turn out well. Eventually, car payments and such started to be missed. But what do you need with a good credit rating in the kingdom of heaven? So all was fine. Anyway, eventually, as all cult leaders do, Jeffrey started to get bored and needed something to do with this tiny amount of power that he had amassed. So he did what all cult leaders do. He found ways to have sex with more people and to commit violence.
Check and check.
Yeah, exactly. He told the group that the scriptures were telling him things about all of their specific lives. They were the only group with the fullest, truest knowledge of these in these final days, after all. I mean, what good is a cult if they're not going to be the only worthy survivors of the apocalypse? So, of course the scriptures were talking about them personally. And look, the scriptures say who's supposed to be married to whom. Jeffrey started telling single members which other single members they were supposed to marry. Isn't that fun?
Nice.
Then the scriptures secretly told him that he was bored with his wife and that he was supposed to be married to that other guy's wife, which he told her about, and they started righteously fucking.
That is so on-brand Mormon, I don't even know what to say about it.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just tradition, folks. You know, and it was foretold by the prophets. Anyway, eventually he also started a thing with another guy's wife because it's good to be the leader. But that wasn't all the scriptures were telling Jeff. Oh, no. The scriptures had some other very exciting news. Jesus was coming back. Like,
yay,
super soon. And they were going to be the welcoming committee. So, in order to prepare for Jesus' return, they were going to have to take control of the place where he was going to show up. The Kirtland Temple.
Oh, no.
And how do you take control of a temple you don't own, which is in a quasi-residential neighborhood? Well, by killing everybody in a few block radius, silly.
Oh my
God. So
Jesus.
They began preparing for this endeavor by amassing an arsenal of firearms and doing military-type training on the compound.
Oh my
This
God.
alarmed the shit out of at least one member who bolted and went to federal authorities to warn them. But his story sounded so nutty that the feds really didn't believe him.
What year about was this?
We're in the 1980s now. 70s and 80s.
And you know how everything works is when you kill a bunch of people and you just kind of concentrate it in one area, then nothing happens.
Nothing happens. Then you're safe.
Then if you stop at some point and don't kill the people beyond that area, then they just leave you alone.
Yeah. Also, Jesus will come and put a biodome over you so that nobody can get through.
Perfect.
So, it's all going to come up roses. Nothing could go wrong here. But the story that was told to the feds didn't ring true to them. But as a precaution, they contacted the local police, who called Lundgren in for a chat.
So wait a minute.
They told
the feds were told, hey, there's a religious group over there on a compound with weapons training for the apocalypse. And they're like, I don't know. I don't see it.
No, what they were like is, there's one everywhere. That happens everywhere.
It was the 70s and 80s. Like cult violence was kind of
exactly.
In.
Call me when they open fire and let otherwise.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Let me know when they get some sarin gas.
Yeah.
But they did contact the local police, and they went and talked to Lundgren, who they told him that they'd heard complaints about a little militia forming in the woods, and that they let him know that they'd sure appreciate it if he'd make sure to keep obeying the law and whatnot.
Right.
That apparently spooked Jeffrey enough that he called off the operation for that year. So Operation Temple Topple was over. And he told the members that it was their fault because they weren't pure enough, and Jesus was very disappointed in all of them, and if they were lucky, they could try again next year.
Right.
But he was pretty worried about that because now he knew that they were being watched. So he needed a new focus for his violent rage, and that needed to be something that nobody outside of the cult would know about. And that's when the scriptures told him something new. Suddenly, it was God's will that the group cleanse themselves through a sacrifice. And that sacrifice would be human, and it would be from within the group, and it would be those goddamn Averys. Oh, I just hate them so much.
Oh, my God.
So, in April of 1989, Jeffy ordered some followers to dig a pit in the big barn, big enough for 5 bodies. He then announced to the group that they were all going to go live in the wilderness for a good long while, so everybody should, prepare for that. A few days later, Jeff booked a hotel room at a nearby Red Roof Inn in the Averys' name. That way, if the authorities went sniffing around, there would be a paper trail of the family not being at their house, I guess. So, real clever.
Yeah.
Then, on April 17th, at a group dinner, he called all the men to come and meet in his room, except you, Dennis Avery. You just stay right here. In that meeting, he made sure that all the men were up to the task, and they all assured him that they were ready to go. So, Operation Murder a Whole Family that constituted like 15 to 20% of your followers was a go. Lundgren and another man were like, hey, Dennis, why don't you just come out to the barn with us? And when they got there, the other men were waiting with guns. They tried to knock him out with a stun gun, but it malfunctioned, so they gagged him and dragged him to the hole they had dug. They started a chainsaw, which must have been terrifying, but turned out to just be there to cover the sound of the gun, which they used to shoot him.
Fuck.
After that, they went for Cheryl Avery. They told her that she needed to comply to prove her devotion to the church. They bound and gagged her and put tape over her eyes, and she submitted willingly to all of this. Then they led her to the hole where she had no idea her husband was lying dead.
Oh, no.
Fucking hell.
There, Jeffrey shot her 3 times, twice in the breasts and once in the abdomen.
Oh, my God.
Then, one by one, they killed each of the 3 Avery girls.
Holy
So
cow.
they fucking went through with it.
They did it.
How?
They did
Fuck.
it. The group buried the Averys and covered the site with garbage to hide the newly dug up dirt. Then, the day after those murders, police came to the Lundgren compound. Why? Because they were still concerned about the takeover of the temple. So, they questioned Jeffrey and poked around a bit, but never had any inkling about the murders, and left none the wiser. After the police left, the group decided to get the fuck out of Dodge and went to live in the outback of West Virginia, where they stayed for months. They had big tents and generators, and Lundgren had even brought a TV and VCR so he could watch his favorite movies, including, I shit you not, The Highlander.
Okay.
Eventually, 9 months after the killing, a tip from an informant led police, who again initially didn't believe it, to inspect the barn. They cleared the garbage away, and after taking incredibly short shifts digging because the smell was outrageous, they found the bodies. The long and the short of it is that a manhunt ensued, and Lundgren was eventually caught, as were the other members of the cult, whom Jeffrey had abandoned in the woods. In all, 13 people were convicted of various crimes, from obstruction of justice for 3 who were determined not to have participated directly in the murders themselves, to Lundgren himself, who was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to execution.
Jesus.
And that is the end of one of the smallest and shortest-lived Mormon churches. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
How did I not know this story?
Yeah, I didn't know about this at all.
I didn't either until I did. Yeah, it's
crazy.
one of those weird things that happened in our lifetimes. And
I don't know if the fact that we didn't know about this speaks to either, in order to break through as a cult, you got to, you really have to make some noise.
You got to put some points on the board. When growing up here, there was always, in the 70s and 80s, there was always a fair amount of Mormon, especially polygamist clan violence that was just kind of always going on. Mm-hmm. The LeBarons and the Laffertys and the Singer Swap clan were always blowing things up or killing one of the other members.
Totally.
So this must have just gotten lost in the static of Mormon violence.
And it was an offshoot not of our LDS church, but of the RLDS church, and that's a totally different thing. That doesn't even count.
Yeah, that doesn't count. That doesn't count against us, right?
Right.
Sure.
Cool.
So there you go. One of the many Mormon offshoots that all seem to have decided that violence was the way.
Yeah. Well, all's well that ends well.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks, Uncle Dan. Let's skedaddle. Well, Uncle Dan.
Woo.
It's always good to meet someone new.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't matter. Look, it doesn't matter where they're from or how far away.
I don't know. Sometimes you go to a party and you meet somebody and you're like, "Hey, tell me about what you do." And they're like, "Oh, I'm middle management for blah blah blah." And it's just like, "Oh, come on."
Yeah.
Like,
you totally asked the wrong guy.
So it just depends on like who it is that you're meeting. But even somebody who is in middle management sometimes has some exciting stories to tell from work. So
generally, the guy I talked to at the party, it turns out to be Colin Robinson from What We Do in the Shadows, the energy
Right.
vampire.
Yes, exactly.
So, Doug, do you have an energy vampire for us today?
Well, no, I have someone who I think at a party would be pretty fascinating to talk to, actually.
Okay.
Well, dear uncles, as is our wont on this podcast, we often discuss the context and actions of various religious leaders and the religions they founded. We are particularly hard on Mormonism, mostly because we are broadcasting far from inside Mormon lines.
I would say firm but fair. I don't think
Firm
we're
but fair.
hard on them. Firm but fair.
I'm just going to say that you both said hard on.
Did we?
Well, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Every other word. We also make fun of Mormonism because it's very, very easy. Another favorite punching bag has been Mormonism's younger sibling, Scientology. Indeed, there are a lot of similarities between these two silly sects. Both are American-born faiths founded by a flamboyant flim-flam fanatic with a penchant for underage poontang.
Ooh.
And as night follows day, Paul follows Jesus, and Stalin follows Lenin. Both religions' visionary, quote-unquote, founders were followed immediately by an authoritarian monster. The reign of Brigham Young ended long ago, but the modern Mormon church is more his than it ever was Joseph's. I'm betting that when David Miscavige finally has a heart attack from power-fucking a sex doll that looks a lot like Tom Cruise, the same will be said of him and Scientology. Both religions are based on works of fiction so stupendously stupid that millions of human hours have been dedicated to making fun of them. Dianetics and the Book of Mormon don't have a lot in common plot-wise, except in their abilities to unify disparate scientific fields and laughing at them. In the case of the Book of Mormon, it's historians, archaeologists, anthropologists, linguists, and biologists. In the case of Scientology, it's psychiatrists, psychologists, and medical doctors. Sorry, entomologists, I guess you're stuck with the anthill gang. Millions of dollars have been spent trying, at least in the case of the Book of Mormon, to bring the story to the silver screen, most notably in 2003's The Book of Mormon movie, Volume 1, The Journey.
Yep.
This film led to one of the funniest nights of my life when Uncle Mark and Uncle Dan joined the Gamcast boys for a live show here in Salt Lake City, and the introduction to my favorite recurring Gamcast character, Fat Camel. Although Dianetics does not really have much of a plot, we're lucky enough to have several other works of fiction by L. Ron Hubbard to draw from. In fact, as most of our listeners are surely aware, Hubbard still holds the record for the most published author, with 1,084 published works, the vast majority being schlocky science fiction.
Yeah, just terrible.
It's super impressive, though.
It's impressive in the volume. The quality is a different story.
No. We're only talking about volume.
That's
We're
right.
talking about quantity. Yeah, it's not quality.
Yeah. Most prominent in these schlocky science fiction works is the 1982 space saga Battlefield Earth.
Yes.
Which was turned into an epic movie event in 2000 starring none other than John Travolta and Forrest Whitaker. Your Uncle Doug may have been adjacent to marijuana once or twice in his past. and
near
maybe,
there too.
Maybe during the late 90s, quite adjacent. And I remember I was in a bit of a phase, and I saw the trailer for Battlefield Earth, and I'm like, fuck yeah. And there I was with my girlfriend at the time, the two of us, on opening day, the only two people in the theater.
Yeah, Doug went through this. Doug, listen, you guys, don't go ever see a movie with Uncle Doug, because he wants to go and be first in line on opening day, and sit in the front row for every movie.
That's right. I take it in. Oh, God.
Is Battlefield Earth the one where Travolta had, like, he looked kind of like the Predator? He had big dreadlocks or whatever coming out of him?
Yes.
Yeah, they made a conscious choice to make the bad guys look like Jamaicans, essentially, space Jamaicans. So, in addition to being L. Ron Hubbard Scientology garbage, it's kind of jaw-droppingly racist.
Lovely. It is, and astoundingly terrible. Like,
yeah, it's good bad. It's so bad, it's hilarious.
It's in the running for the worst movie ever made, for sure. Yeah. Truthfully,
love it.
After all the Mormon movies we've done with the Gamcast boys, I think we need to demand that we get to do that one as a respite.
Yes.
Yep. I'm going to put him on blast.
All right.
Everybody write into them. Hashtag whatever we are.
We have done
Doug's
the
dreams
most.
come true.
We have done more than any other guest hosts. We've done more shows with them than any other guest hosts. We fucking deserve Battlefield Earth.
That's right.
No more Mormon garbage. I was so depressed after our last fucking movie.
You were depressed. I was sleeping on top of a chair, so my feet wouldn't touch the floor. Okay, so the fact that millions of dollars have been poured in to the desperate attempt to bring the fictional works of Joseph Smith and L. Ron Hubbard to life have resulted in two films that make showgirls look like Citizen Kane, says all you really need to know about the source material. And I know, Uncle Dan, you're a big fan of Showgirls.
Oh, another excellent bad movie.
Yeah.
But these particular gold mines are far from spent, and until they are, or until either of these cults no longer hold sway on the minds of humans, your uncles are going to put on their overalls, sharpen their picks, and get to digging.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, there is one aspect of Scientology that I've been thinking a lot about, and it is the life and times of Lord Xenu. Now, Uncle Mark did a dive in an earlier episode into Lord Xenu, but mostly in the context of the Scientology practice of auditing. and the progression along the path towards clear and towards operating Thetan levels, etc. But today I'd really like to take a good look at Xenu himself, the problems he confronted, and the solutions he came up with to solve those problems, and what, if anything, we can learn from his example.
I'm sorry, I hate to correct you on the air, Doug, but I believe it's pronounced Xenu, like Javier, right? The X is kind of
Is that true?
I feel like that would require LRH to have been aware of Mexicans in a way other than just a place to park his boat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, in a lot of the early accounts, he spelled it Xemu, Xemu.
Oh, that's right.
So, yeah. So let's recap Xenu and how Scientologists come to learn about him. The whole point of Scientology is to wring every possible penny from adherents. And the main vehicle to do this is to manipulate the followers through the aforementioned auditing to move level by level up to the, removing those pesky thetans from your soul. And we'll definitely talk about that. So after going clear, people are encouraged to continue up towards the OT levels, which every time someone achieves, the religion discovers, quote unquote, a new one. Every step along this path costs money. And those that hit the upper OT levels often end up spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for the privilege.
Yeah.
This helps explain why, when Scientologists hit OT level 3, commonly called the Wall of Fire, they don't walk away laughing like they should. By that time, they've spent buku bucks and have in all likelihood ruined family relationships to get there. So it's a bit of a sunk cost fallacy. It's at this stage where Scientologists learn about Lord Xenu in the form of a supposedly handwritten letter by L. Ron Hubbard himself. We'll discuss this letter in a minute, but this belief by Scientology is similar to the temple rituals in Mormonism. Devout members of both faiths will not talk about them, but former members have given us all the details we need. Mm-hmm. Scientology denies this and has spent an unknown amount of money, certainly a lot, to keep this secret and smear those who have revealed it. So imagine my surprise when I discovered that L. Ron Hubbard had written a screenplay about Xenu and the events described in the Wall of Fire, and for years was trying to shop it in Hollywood.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So the 1970s. Yeah, I didn't know that either until I started reading into this. I had no idea. The 1977 screenplay was called Revolt in the Stars. And it was clearly a response to Star Wars that had come out earlier that year.
Oh, my God. He was going to try to take down Star Wars.
You know what? Jump on that bandwagon, baby.
Oh, I wish he had so badly.
Only Lucas can destroy Star Wars.
Oh.
He did a good job, too.
Yeah, he did. It's not a screenplay. It's actually a treatment, but I'm going to call it a screenplay. But it's written in narrative form. Now, disclaimer here. The fact that Hubbard wrote the screenplay and tried to shop it in Hollywood is generally accepted. But because this screenplay would be the Scientology equivalent of a screenplay written by Joseph Smith called How Me and the Boys Made Up the Book of Mormon, Scientology has been working very hard to catch and kill any copies. So the plot of the screenplay is that the forces that finally defeated Xenu after his atrocities here on Earth left a capsule for future intelligent life to find, explaining what had happened. So that's kind of the plot. Humans find this capsule, and it tells them of a long ago space saga that ended on Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it goes into great detail about Xenu, his allies, and his enemies, the most prominent of which is clearly meant to be a gallant and presumably less paunchy version of L. Ron Hubbard. So the 71-page version that I found online may or may not be authentic. I read it anyway. I mean, I skimmed it. And it sure sounds like the crap that Hubbard was churning out at the time, but I can't be sure. Mm-hmm. And in any case, it's not nearly as fun as the summation he wrote for Scientology, so we're going to stick with that.
Nice.
One thing that I think is noteworthy at this point, and I didn't know this, nowhere in the Wall of Fire document, the screenplay, or any of the other writings of Hubbard is there any description of Xenu, his people, or the myriad alien races that inhabit the narrative as anything but wholly humanoid. So I know... In the South Park and other popular skewerings of this shit, the aliens are varied and tentacled, but it does not appear that this is what Hubbard intended. I don't know if this was laziness or a lack of imagination, but like in old Twilight Zone episodes or old Star Trek episodes, the aliens just look like us.
Well, he was so unimaginative that he said the spaceships, and maybe you're going to get to it, Doug.
I'll get to this.
That Xenu flew from wherever to Earth in looked like DC-9s or
DC-8s.
DC-8s, right.
Which was the most common passenger jet at the time.
Yeah, he looked out the window and said, spaceship, done.
Yeah.
Done. Easy.
I mean, in the screenplay, Xenu's home planet is called Home Planet. So it really was a struggle to get through it, and it didn't really give us anything to play with. It was just a very bad episode of the Twilight Zone.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay, so just as we progress through the narrative, try not to think of squids or bears or insects. These jokers, just like the Moonquakers, were familiar, although perhaps with a strangely tailored jacket. This informs one of my favorite moments in any science fiction story, when one enemy says to the other after doing battle, "We are not so different, you and I. In another time, I could have called you friend."
Yeah.
Every time that happens in a science fiction story, I get up and cheer. Like, yeah. So, we're going to take as a given that everything described below actually happened. Today, we're simply going to analyze the decisions and consequences of the story of Xenu and what we can infer about the culture he lived in. So, we're to the heat of the meat. The document that is shown to Scientologists is not long, and it paints this story, this tale. Some 75 million years ago, Lord Xenu was the ruler of a galactic confederacy of planets, which consisted of 26 stars and 76 planets, of which our star and our planet were a part. So here we get our first glimpse into the culture of these creatures. There are between 150 and 250 billion stars in our galaxy. So 26 stars makes up between 0.000000002 and 0.000000001% of the galaxy. Calling that a galactic confederacy speaks to a bloated and unchecked PR department within the confederacy, which was surely coupled with a bloated HR department, which speaks to a runaway bureaucracy in general. So, this confederacy was founded 95 million years ago, so you can imagine that an institution that was 20 million years old might have some institutional drift.
Yeah, sure. Bloated.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Bloated. The bureaucracy is just entrenched and ossified.
Truly. So, since Earth, at the time called TGEAC, which is TEEGEEACK, had no intelligent life at the time, but was claimed by the Confederacy as one of its planets, we can infer that these creatures were colonialists. Hubbard wrote this in 1967, and as I mentioned above, described creatures that looked very much like us, who in fact wore clothing, drove cars, and used trains that looked remarkably like their earthly counterparts in the 1960s.
Sure.
So we can
That's
infer from right. We can infer from this that the Confederacy had achieved corduroy and polyester technology. This would, of course, mean that at least some of the planets, oil had been discovered. This also means that this civilization had crossed the technological threshold into pre-disco electric acid funk, a major milestone in any civilization's progress.
Yeah.
Now, it's unclear if Xenu was elected, appointed, took power in some coup, or if the Confederacy had some sort of electoral college. But Xenu's hold on power was being threatened. It seems the source of this turmoil was an overpopulation problem across the Confederacy. Now,
maybe it's like a rotating chair, like on the Security Council.
Something like, there's not a lot to go off of there.
Right.
Now, an overpopulation problem seems to be a self-limiting problem between planets, right? It just seems like a planet would hit its maximum population, and then that would be the problem of that planet. But this was a Confederacy-wide problem.
Because once your planet's fucked, you move to another planet.
That's right. Therefore, we can infer that there was a robust and affordable mass transit system between planets and very liberalized immigration laws. This speaks to at least a period of extensive public works projects and social welfare programs at some point in the history of the Confederacy. We have to assume a fairly high level of taxation to maintain the system, which again necessitates extensive governmental bureaucracy. However, the population problem came about, it had become acute. Okay, according to Hubbard, the population of each planet was 250 billion or so, with the average being 178 billion. How, I can hear you asking, could the average be 29% lower than the average? Well, we don't know.
Don't inject maths into this. It's alien technology. You don't know.
Yeah.
The solution to... I know, right? The solution that Xenu did devise was, let's call it, unique, because it sure wasn't elegant. He employed psychiatrists to help him trick billions of his subjects to gather for mass income tax inspections. Yes.
Like all great stories of religion, they begin with a census for taxation.
Exactly. Exactly. Like the census in Matthew requiring everyone to go to the hometown of their ancestor to be counted. This is not how things are supposed to work.
Yeah.
So Xenu then paralyzed these poor souls and froze them with a mixture of glycol and alcohol. Now, let's make some assumptions here. Let's assume that the optimal population of a planet the size of Earth is 10 billion. I know that's a big assumption. And that if the average of the 75 planets of the Confederacy was 178 billion per planet, that's an excess in population of 168 billion per planet, or Confederacy-wide, 12.6 trillion beings. So, if each of these beings was about our size, that would require about a bathtub's volume of glycol and alcohol to freeze them in. The average volume of a bathtub is 50 gallons. That means that Xenu would need 630 trillion gallons of glycol of the glycol alcohol mixture. So, as Mark mentioned,
was it what a hell of a day at the glycol alcohol store,
Right?
right?
so
Honey, we're going on vacation.
Yeah. That salesman got the commission was outrageous.
that's right. Our ship had come in. So, as Uncle Mark mentioned, the main mode of hauling freight at the time were spaceships that looked remarkably like DC-8s. When Hubbard wrote all this down, it was like the biggest passenger plane at the time. And as everyone knows, obviously, the DC-8 had a maximum takeoff weight of 276,000 pounds. Now, this included the plane itself as well as the fuel, but let's assume the Confederacy's DC-8s were not limited by fuel or the plane's operating empty weight. Okay? Fair?
Yeah, because they're spaceships, so the weight only matters for a second.
Right.
I feel like when we started this podcast, I was promised there would be no math.
Strap in. Okay, a gallon of alcohol weighs just shy of 7 pounds. So each DC-8 can carry about 39,429 gallons of alcohol and glycol, which means that to procure the needed amount of alcohol, there needed to be about 15.9 billion sorties. This liquid would then need to be distributed to the 75 planets. So what we can learn from this about Xenu is that he was a big picture kind of guy.
Yeah,
Right?
totally.
Ambitious, right?
And he could make stuff happen.
Yeah, he got it done.
And you know, as is typical of people who get shit done, the more complicated, needlessly complicated you make your plan, the higher degree of possibility you're going to pull it off.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so once frozen, each of these blocks of ice, now containing a body, were sent to Earth, again called TGAC, again in DC-8s. These blocks of ice were placed next to volcanoes in Loa, Vesuvius, Shasta, Fujiyama, and Etna. Now, here's where I think I can identify a flaw in Xenu's thinking.
What? How?
Not
So far, it has been flawless.
Exactly. And it's not what you think. It's not that none of those volcanoes existed 75 million years ago, although that's a good point. Nope. I think the flaw here is that leaving ice cubes next to active volcanoes seems counterproductive.
Yeah.
So, and just for context, if each of these blocks was 6 feet long enough for an average creature to be completely encased in ice, if you laid those end to end, the 12.6 trillion of them, that would stretch 14 billion miles. Pluto, by the way, is just over 3 billion miles away.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so Xenu
You're not stacking, like, you got to do it sort of in a chevron pattern.
Right, exactly.
You know, sorry, Doug, I just got to jump back. He is officially called Lord Xenu, right?
He is called Lord Xenu.
Okay, well, so he inherited his title. So that's
I don't know if that's their version of president or comptroller,
he's some sort of baron.
Sure, yeah. So Xenu finished the task of killing these creatures by exploding hydrogen bombs inside the volcanoes, causing them to erupt. Now, this clearly speaks to a runaway military-industrial complex within the Confederacy.
Right? Yeah, it does.
Also, volcanoes are great, but they're not nearly as fucking destructive as a hydrogen bomb.
Right, exactly.
So just why did you need the volcano?
If you've got the bombs, just like put them out in space and blow them up.
Why did you freeze these fucking people and carry them all this way just to blow them up with a hydrogen bomb?
Now, that's a great point, and here's what I think could be happening at this point.
Yeah.
It could be that the Confederacy's economy was in a depression or a recession, and that this was kind of a intergalactic version of the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, where the Roosevelt administration paid guys to dig a hole and then paid someone else to fill it in. So I think this might have been an attempt to goose the economy, but we're never going to know that. So now the fact that this insane amount of alcohol and glycol or any trace of the myriad hydrogen bombs have not been found in our fossil record, while the remains of the meteor that killed off the dinosaurs, which happened only 10 million years later, must mean that it has not been discovered yet, right? How else could you explain it?
Yeah.
However, the suffering of these creatures was far from over. Now freed from their mortal coils, the souls of these creatures floated free. Why this was a problem for Xenu to solve is not clear, but it seems that Xenu was not a half-measure kind of ruler. He had these souls. They had the souls of these creatures, called now Thetans, gathered in an electronic ribbon. Think of it as kind of a giant vacuum cleaner. They were then forced to watch 3D motion pictures for 36 days.
What?
Yes. Yeah. I talked about this when I talked about Xenu.
Yep.
And there were
about
like
that part.
9 billion people in each theater or something.
Yeah, and even 9 billion people would. I mean, 9 billion. 12.6 trillion divided by 9 billion is a hell of a lot of theaters.
Well, no, there were only like 2 or 3, and one was in the Canary Islands, which was important. I'm serious.
I know.
Yeah.
And as you talked about, Mark, these films they watched were kind of previews of the religions of man, of humans.
Okay.
So it dealt with the God, the devil, Catholicism specifically.
Yeah, there was the crucifixion of Christ was previewed.
Yep, and it was meant to confuse these Thetans, I guess, so they wouldn't leave the Earth and go be a problem for...
Well, and it's a giant spoiler. You just told them everything that's going to happen.
Right.
I also feel like, do you think maybe it was more of a blood on the highway sort of thing? Like it was somehow
a warning.
A warning or like just follow all the rules.
Yeah.
Sort of I don't know.
Well, the one thing we know for sure is that this speaks to a robust and thriving entertainment and film industry in the Confederacy.
Yes.
As well as a very impressive religious studies program. So all of this seems to have been not enough to allow Xenu to hold power, and he was deposed by a group called the Loyal Officers.
Yeah.
He was locked away in an electric mountain trap, which is what he called it, where Xenu is to this day. So some people say it's in the Pyrenees, others say it's in different places, but Xenu is still in prison 75 million years later.
Here on our planet?
Yeah, here on Earth.
Oh, man. Let's find that guy.
So what are the lessons of this story, and is there anything that applies to us?
No.
And I don't think so.
No.
I mean, at heart, it's the story of an unpopular, power-hungry leader of an aging superpower with a bloated bureaucracy and an out-of-control military-industrial complex attempting to distract his disaffected subjects with economic issues while plotting to have them killed. I just don't see how it applies to us. So there it is. There's the life and times of our Lord Xenu.
I love that you have given Xenu 20 times the thought that L. Ron Hubbard ever did.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that was great. I'm going to go freeze myself in glycol and alcohol and blow up a volcano.
I'm going to go look for Xenu. I'm going to find that guy.
And if you'd blown up Mount Etna with a hydrogen bomb, it wouldn't be there anymore.
Biden Xenu 2020.
All right. Let's get the fuck out of here.
Well, fellas.
Hello.
Hi. Are you still there? Are we still doing a show? That's good. Listen, we're not the only people involved in this show. I don't know if you know this. But after we record all this, we send it out into the ether, and it goes through a series of tubes.
Yes.
And gets to listeners, people who choose of their own free will, without us forcing them at all,
for reasons
to listen
we still
to the
don't
show.
understand.
Yep.
No. Mysterious reasons that we would never even be able to comprehend.
People who apparently have not discovered Netflix yet.
Shh. Doug, quiet. What are you doing?
It's like podcasts, but with pictures.
Yeah. Ixnay on the Netflix.
It's like our podcast, but with pictures and quality.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, some people even like our show so much that they are, or at least they appreciate something about it enough that they're willing to part with a little bit of their money and they're the best people in the world, so we need to
Indeed.
thank them.
Yes.
So thanks so much to Bruce, to Jack, to Jonathan, to George, and Uncle Mark. I believe you are going to give a saint improvised on the spot for Joshua.
Joshua. That's, again, that's a solid saint name just right there.
Yeah, well, it's Jesus' name.
Yeah. I spelled another way.
Oily Josh.
Oily Josh?
Yeah, Christ means anointed one, which means he was anointed with oil.
Oh.
So he's Oily Josh. That's
I thought you
Jesus
were
Christ.
being extremely rude to our new patron, and I wasn't going to stand for it.
I have no idea how oily Joshua is. But
Well, we'll find out eventually. So,
Jesus.
Joshua, oil aside,
yeah.
your saint, of course, is, let me get the big book here, carry the 4. Okay, your saint is Saint Manpants of Sausalito, who is, of course, the patron saint of thermonuclear hair care, Dade County, Florida, of course, and those who mourn the deaths of fictional characters just a little too much. Yeah.
Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Let's find another reference than J.K. Rowling, shall we?
Right? Well, now we have to mourn the loss of the entire series.
Yeah, she's grounded. She's so fucking grounded.
She is.
Yeah.
And then Uncle Doug, I'm going to give you the job of sainting Dave and Shay.
Oh, fuck. Okay. Dave and Shay. Mark, you have the book. I'll have to just do this from memory.
Yeah.
Dave and Shay, your
Well,
saint
this is as much an art as a science. You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
So you just kind of feel it.
That's right.
Yeah.
As much a fart as a seance. Your saint is Saint Jalapeno the Popper of Oaxaca, Mexico. Saint Jalapeno is the patron saint of Anne of Green Gables, Brad of the Blue Angels, and Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
All right.
Yeah,
Brad of the Blue Angels, huh?
I don't know any of the members of the Blue Angels. I assume one of them is named Brad.
There's probably a Brad.
There are probably multiple Brads.
Or Goose or Maverick or Iceman. I don't know. I saw a volleyball movie about that once.
If anybody, if any listeners know any of the Blue Angels, please tell them to make their call sign Brad from now on.
It's the Brad Angels.
Anyway, thank you all so much. Dave and Shay, thank you. Congratulations on your saint, and Joshua also. If you, dear listener, who isn't one of them people, would like to become one of them people, you may do so by going to howtoheretic.com. You click on the little support tab, and then that takes you to our Patreon page, and then you just sign up at whatever level you want to. You show us that you love us. We show you that we love you back by saying your name on the air. It's a back and forth. There's other things that you get. You might get access to our patron-only content. There's a whole bunch of stuff. You get to be a Monday person instead of a Wednesday person.
Yeah.
You hear us first. It's all upside for you.
Yeah, it's all upside. And listen, I don't know if you guys know this because I'm the keeper of the saints. We are very close to our 100th saint.
Whoa!
So and I'm not going to say how far we are, but we're very close. So there's an incentive. If you draw the lucky 100, we'll send you a poster.
There you go.
Ooh, holy cow.
We're very close. We're very close.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
So there you go. If you can't afford to give us money, certainly we understand that, and we're not going to be bitter at all. But if you don't go and give us 5 stars on iTunes or something of the like, then we will be bitter and we'll be mad at you.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Even odd numbers are better than even, and what number is better than 5? So let's do it.
Right.
We're together, moving forward forever.
Hooray! Let's move on.
Uncle Dan,
Hey,
we're going through a weird moment right now in the world.
I'm going through a weird moment right now just in this chair.
Change.
On top of the global pandemic and the protests over police brutality and everything else that seems to be falling on our heads right now, one of those things is some statues that never should have been there in the first place.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
So-
we got a few of those in this country.
there's too many. So I think Uncle Mark's going to give us.
I think there's just too many fucking statues. It's not that they're of racist. It's just that they're too numerous.
How dare you? I love statuary.
I do too.
Like sculpture is one of my favorite art forms. So
I love statuary, but let's get into it.
Okay.
So you guys know that I work in the visual arts, and I have a great appreciation, as Dan was saying, of all things art and creativity. And I was on my way to a fine arts degree before I dropped out because I wanted to just start making money rather than going to 7:30 a.m. Pen and ink classes. So today I want to talk about symbols. And as we all know, and we've talked about plenty of them on the show, the world of religion is saturated with symbols, whether the crucifix, the Star of David, whatever the new nip-slip Mormon thing is, et cetera, et cetera. Symbols are a signifier of belonging, of membership, but they can also be warnings. So for me, a swastika or an SS Death Head symbol comes to mind immediately, or say the biohazard symbol, which is very au courant at the moment. And while the argument never stops raging about whether or not America is a Christian nation, and by design it is not, our national identity and landscape are awash in symbols as well, whether it's Old Glory or the cursed stars and bars of the Confederacy. But it's abso-fucking-lutely critical we understand that symbols don't mean the same thing to all Americans. Bullet-headed New Orleans Saints quarterback Drew Brees drew fire from his black teammates for A, insisting Colin Kaepernick's kneeling NFL protest was intended as disrespect for the U.S. flag. It was not, and Kaepernick only said so himself 12 million times. And that B, because the flag means so fucking much to him, Drew Brees, that everybody else was goddamned obliged to feel and act the same way about it.
right.
There was such a massive pushback from Brees' teammates and other black voices, including sportscaster Shannon Sharp, that Brees actually apologized, seeming to have let new information penetrate his thick skull and cause him to reflect.
Well, that's downright un-American right there.
Can I just interject another possible motive for him apologizing? That the line of men who protect him from like skull injury every day
are pretty
black.
much all black.
Yeah.
And he's a quarterback of a beloved team in one of America's most celebrated black cities.
Right.
So what an idiot. So it seems like it did cause him to reflect. Sharp's comments, you should look them up. He was kind of amazing. Challenged Brees to understand that the stars and stripes maybe don't mean the same thing to all Americans, so he can fuck off with insisting it has to. So let's talk about another flag. The stars and bars of the racist, theocratic United States of the Confederacy. It was the battle flag of a republic that chose to march to national suicide and annihilation against the more populous, more industrialized North for the express purpose of defending their God-given right to own and exploit other human beings.
Right.
This is a fact that is not in dispute. I've tried...
Not in dispute by historians.
Right. Exactly.
By people who actually know things. So as I've tried to pound new information through my own thick skull these past few weeks, I took Killer Mike's advice and read the Cornerstone speech. This was a speech given by Alexander Stephens, the vice president of the Confederacy, just weeks before the first shots were fired at Fort Sumter. It leaves no doubt that the Confederacy would die defending a certain God-ordained institution, and I quote, The new Constitution has put to rest forever all the agitating questions relating to our peculiar institution, African slavery, as it exists amongst us, the proper status of the Negro in our form of civilization. This was the immediate cause of the late rupture and the present revolution, meaning the secession and the coming war.
Right.
Our new government is founded upon, I'm jumping ahead a bit. Our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea. Its foundations are laid. Its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery's subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition. This, our new government, is the first in the history of the world based upon this great physical, philosophical, and moral truth. So, the founding and defining principle of the Confederacy was their God-given right to practice slavery forever. Miss me with the states' rights bullshit. States' rights to do what exactly?
You're right.
To fucking own people and expend their lives in the service of your money. So, despite getting roundly defeated...
I apologize that my cat is interrupting such... I'm like waving my arms at her to get her to stop meowing. She's just looking at me.
She's very adamant about the Black Lives Matter movement.
She's a black cat.
Yeah.
She is hearing it.
She's got something to say, and I welcome it. So, despite getting roundly defeated, and even Robert E. Lee himself saying it was all over, so knock all that shit off, the battle flag of the Confederacy started popping up in the decades after the war and emancipation. It took extremely open racist Dylan Roof murdering 9 human beings who had welcomed him into their Bible study group in South Carolina, and activist Bree Newsom climbing the flagpole and pulling it down in a guerrilla move to finally get that fucking symbol of hate removed from the Capitol grounds in South Carolina for good, where it had been placed, not in 1861, but in 1961 as a reaction to the budding civil rights movement and desegregation. And remember, the flag in question is not the national flag of the Confederacy, but the standard it flew expressly for war. It has a totally different flag it had a different national flag. 7 southern states still have a version of the stars and bars and or the Confederate national flag incorporated into their flags. Some created just after the state in question lost in its attempted insurrection for the purpose of owning human beings. Some, perhaps worse, were adopted much later, including Alabama in 1895, Arkansas in 1913, Florida in 1897, and most insidiously, Georgia, which added the Confederate battle flag to its design in 1956. It's only recently been modified again. So, 1/3 of black Americans live in states where the symbol of theocratic, enslaving evil was added after the country it represented was pounded into sand. Why? And it's not just the Confederate battle flag, which I think should rightly be viewed as the American swastika. Not just in its original use, but by those who continue to use it as a signal of their hatred and a means of terrorizing black people. The South, but weirdly not exclusively the South, is dotted with monuments and statuary of defeated pro-slavery insurrectionists. I've personally spent quite a bit of time in parts of the South. Dan, you came to visit me there a couple years back. I've seen black kids playing Frisbee in the shadow of the John C. Calhoun statue in Charleston. And for those that don't know, he may have been the fiercest defender of slavery since the God of the Old Testament. I caught my breath a bit walking onto the Texas state capitol grounds and seeing a monument to, quote, our glorious Confederate war dead.
Yeah, it's the biggest monument on the grounds, and it's shocking.
It's a bit shocking. In New Orleans, on my walk to work, it included a stroll through Lee Circle, where the treasonous warlord until recently stood atop a grand column, but the city of New Orleans has taken it down. And every time I would brush the dissonance off by thinking, this is super fucked up, but I'm not from here, so maybe I just don't get it. Well, it turns out the vast majority of these regal monuments to the glorious lost cause were not put up by grieving widows and communities still echoing with the cannon fire so recently silenced. The bulk of them were put up between 1900 and the 1950s, 40 to 90 years after the beautiful dream of owning people forever as God intended, as laid out with diamond-like clarity by Confederate Vice President Alexander Stephens, was blown to smithereens by Union artillery. Again, why?
Yeah.
So, like the rebel battle flag being added to state flags as late as 1956, these monuments were put up with violent intent. It was a psychological warfare operation mostly carried out by the genteel, daytime version of the Ku Klux Klan, the Daughters of the Confederacy. These symbols were as deliberate an act of terrorism as burning a cross in a family's front yard, but maybe even worse, because they weren't put up by masked cowards under the cover of darkness, but by mayors and city councils and chambers of commerce and ladies' auxiliary committees. These were erected in the light of day by the government and business classes of the white power structures to make sure their black neighbors knew exactly how things were going to be.
Right.
Heritage and culture, my ass, they were a reminder of who was in charge and what values and ideals those people still maintained. So, we recently saw the statue of the hideous slave trader Edward Colston torn down and rolled to the river for an afternoon of water sport by the good people of Bristol in the UK.
Yeah.
And Christopher Columbus statues were torn down in both Virginia and Minnesota, as well as one being decapitated in Boston this past week. And
Did you see that great where a bunch of the map apps in those cities relocated the position of those statues to the river?
Now, I'm not necessarily advocating violence or destruction. However, the goodly white citizens of newly destatued municipalities mustn't linger too long on the fainting couch without considering that if their precious symbols were erected with violent intent, removing them with violent intent is kind of fair play, no?
Right.
So true.
Why should the people these symbols were designed to oppress play any nicer than your grandpappy did when he used taxpayer money to put them up? So,
it's not violence against people. That's violence against a big piece of metal. I think
symbol.
it's okay.
It's like flag burning.
Right.
You know, it's a symbol, and you can put it in your front yard or you can burn it. That's what you do with symbols, right? So that brings us back here to Utah. We were not meant to be a state, but rather a theocratic empire, very much like the Confederacy. When in 1847, the Mormons occupied this Ute, Paiute, Goshute, and Shoshone land that was outside the United States at the time because Mexico laid claim to it. The would-be emperor of this stolen territory was an imperious piece of shit by the name Brigham Young, who our friend Bryce Blankenagel describes as the Mormon Hitler. I would say Stalin, but what's a little argument about mustache widths between friends? So, to be absolutely clear...
Wait, he was the one who didn't have a mustache. He had a big beard without mustache. So he can't be either of those guys. Both of you are ridiculous.
Dictatorial facial hair can be very, very incoherent.
Is that kind of how, like, if you become a dictator, you have to go to the clubhouse and select facial hair that has not been done before? Is that how it works?
I think that's true.
I've still never understood the choice of Hitler's mustache. Like, what? How do you arrive at that? I don't know.
He was a huge Chaplin fan.
Yeah, exactly. The choice
Chaplin
I find
was a
weirder
huge fan of his.
Is Michael Jordan's version of the Hitler mustache, which I think Hitler kind of ruined that mustache for a while.
That's right. Michael Jordan did that too. That was so bizarre.
So weird.
So, to be absolutely clear, and not only the non-Mormon historical record backs me up on this, but so do the official writings of the church. Brigham Young was a man of consummate evil, not just by today's standards, but his own as well. He was deeply hateful of black people and robustly pro-slavery. He owned the man who entered the Salt Lake Valley 1 second before he did, an enslaved black person called Green Flake, because he was driving the wagon Brigham's sick, ample rump was laying in. He made the Utah Territory the only American slave territory outside of the South. He was a mass murderer who ordered the massacres of at least hundreds, likely far more indigenous people. The order for the Timpanogos massacre being just one example, where probably 100 died. And likely even gave the order that took the lives of over 100 California-bound white Arkansas settlers at the Mountain Meadows Massacre, which Doug discussed in episode 51.
In fairness, he had an intestinal thing that made him grumpy.
So. He was a grumpy man, and he looked like it. As he was both the civil and ecclesiastical master of his people, he was basically responsible for everything that happened in the territory, where a fairly common practice was capturing or buying indigenous children to be slaves in white households, most of whom only lived to be about 20. There's record of hundreds of these cases. He had no less than 3 dedicated assassins whom he directed to commit an unknown number of blood atonements, which were just extrajudicial murders of people he hated. You can listen to our segment about that in episode 50. Here are some quotes, and there are many more, from our friend Brigham Young pertaining to slavery and black people generally. You must think, from what I say, that I'm opposed to slavery. No! Exclamation point. The Negro is damned, and is to serve his master till God chooses to remove the curse of Ham. Another one is, shall I tell you the law of God in regard to the African race? If the white man who belongs to the chosen seed mixes his blood with the seed of Cain, the penalty under the law of God is death on the spot. This will always be so.
Wow.
Any man having 1 drop of the seed of Cain in him cannot hold the priesthood. I will say it now in the name of Jesus Christ. I know it's true, and they know it's true. Jesus Christ, who probably had more than a drop of black blood in him, but let's continue. I know it is true, and they know it. The Negro cannot hold one particle of government. If any man mingles his seed with the seed of Cain, the only way he could get rid of it or have salvation would be to come forward and have his head cut off and spill his blood upon the ground. It would also take the life of his children. That is him saying that the babies of mixed race relationships should be decapitated.
And here's the thing: is we know these quotes. A lot of them we know quite well, and there's many, many more. But these things were not said or thought in a vacuum.
No.
Right? There was an entire cultural architecture within which these were acceptable things to say.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're not cherry picking, I guess is the point I'm trying to say, is like this guy was to his core a fucking evil racist, and he ran an evil racist institution.
Yes.
How great is it though when one of these assholes, especially the leader of a religion, says, "And that will be the way it is forever." Because it's just a beautiful way to trap yourself into proving that you were a fraud.
I think in baseball they call that calling your shot. It's a bold move.
Yeah. Well, it's one thing to call your shot. It's one thing to call your shot when you're 0-10 billion.
Right.
Like,
And as Doug said, it's a despicable racist institution that took a century, 100 fucking years after he said these things to begin to do away with it, right? The priesthood ban was done away with in 1978, almost 150 years, 120 years after he said some of this stuff. So here's another quote. Now remember, he was the religious authority, God's greatest religious authority on earth, but he was also the ruler of this territory. So he was also the civic leader. And here he is speaking as his civic leader at a joint session of the Utah legislature. I have this section in my hand headed "An Act in Relation to African Slavery." I have read it over and made a few alterations. I will remark with regard to slavery, inasmuch as we believe in the Bible, inasmuch as we believe in the ordinances of God, in the priesthood and order and decrees of God, we must believe in slavery. This colored race has been subjected to severe curses, which they have in their families and in their classes and in their various capacities brought upon themselves.
Oof.
And until the curse is removed by him who placed it upon them, they must suffer under its consequences. I am not authorized to remove it. I am a firm believer in slavery.
Jesus. Yeah. And remember, again, he wasn't just the ruler of this religion and this territory for a short period of time. He was that guy for 40 fucking years.
Yeah, so he was an emperor.
Imagine any institution, bears the marks of its leadership.
Yep.
And any institution that's led for 40 years by a guy with this mindset is not going to come out of that a woke institution.
He is the skeleton on which the body of Mormonism is built. And they are inseparable. So he continues in that same speech. I would like masters to behave well to their servants and to see that every person in this territory is well used. When a master has a Negro and uses him well, he is much better off than if he was free. As for masters knocking them down and whipping them and breaking the limbs of their servants, I have as little opinion of that as any person can have. But good, wholesome servitude, I know there is nothing better than that.
Oh, it's wholesome.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
what
nice.
A fucking monster. So Brigham Young was and is garbage. A frothing racist, a criminal, and a mass murderer. He was also the second prophet of the Mormon Church and the founder and first governor of the state of Utah. He is revered in Mormonism, a church that has decided to go so whole fucking hog with this excremental anti-American monster to the extent that they've named their most prestigious institution, Brigham Young University, after him, as well as 3 other air quotes universities. These are simply the facts, and this is the actual history. But here in sleepy Salt Lake City, there are at least 2 taxpayer-funded, heroically rendered Brigham Young statues on public land. There is yet another one that was bought by taxpayers, that 20 years ago declared sanctuary inches from public property on a church-owned park, I'm using air quotes, that used to be a public street before the city sold it to them for some magic beans. That's a story for another day. But and I think it's high time we decide if that's something we, fellow Salt Lakers and Utahns, are willing to put up with. A public monument is not how we record history. It's a statement of community values. The mayor and the city council and the Utah legislature had meetings, kept minutes, appropriated funds in order to declare our civic values in the form of expensive public monuments in the shape of Brigham Young. But as I've demonstrated, Brigham Young was a fucking monster and a disgrace, and the shadow his bronzes cast over our community is a stain I think we should refuse to tolerate. So you might say, okay, Uncle Mark, Utah is 93% white. Just under 2% of the population is black. Okay, sure, that doesn't seem like much, but that's nearly 50,000 black fellow Utahns. And despite Brigham Young's best efforts, the number of indigenous Utahns is about the same. So we're telling 100,000 of our neighbors to just fucking deal with our choice to blemish the landscape with the image of a man who used all his dictatorial powers to enslave and murder their great-great-grandparents. You may be okay with that. I certainly am not. But why should we only give a shit about this awful man's crimes and psychopathy in the presence of our black and indigenous countrymen?
Right.
Does his evil only exist in their presence? Let's pretend Utah was as Brigham Young dreamt of it, with only lily-white Mormons from Vernal to Wendover and from Logan to Laverkin. Excuse me. Are we off the hook then? I'm going to go with no. These monuments to the murderous, theocratic, Confederate, self-styled Old Testament Pharaoh, Brigham Young, are not really about him. They're about us. Mm-hmm. To my fellow Salt Lakers and fellow Utahns, are his values and ideals what we want to be known and understood for? We can do nothing to change that he stole this land to found a racist, misogynist, theocratic empire and ended up having to settle for this stupid square state. But we can do nothing to change the fact that because of this pretentious would-be emperor, the origins of church and this state were inseparable. And the Mormon church can cling to this evil, hideous fuck and his name and his works until white Jesus comes back. But we, the tax-paying public, don't have to. And we should shit this insidious motherfucker's poison out like a bad oyster. And lest we forget, every state has two statues in the U.S. Capitol in D.C. One of ours is Philo Farnsworth, the inventor of television, among a million other modern things, so that's pretty cool. The other is the aforementioned evil shitbag Brigham Young. We have chosen to tell the whole country that Brigham Young represents who and what we are. And the great irony is he's on display in the seat of power of a nation he fucking despised right. and meant to both flee and make war against. What a train wreck of a symbol. So this makes me a little fucking crazy. It's an embarrassment. But that's my take on on the power of symbols, for good and bad. And I think this is a conversation that Utahns need to have.
Yes.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And up at the Capitol in here in Utah, our Capitol grounds are beautiful. It's a beautiful Capitol.
Yeah, it's a great building.
It's positioned on a beautiful hill above the city.
And unlike many U.S. capitals, not built by slaves. So we do have that.
Yeah, that's... Yeah. Hey!
I do have a little update for you, because you mentioned Philo T. Farnsworth's statue in the nation's capital. It's been replaced, or at least it's being replaced.
Oh no!
So that one's the one that's already coming down, but it's being replaced by Martha Q. Cannon, she's amazing, and I love or Martha Hughes Cannon. Sorry.
Right.
So that's actually a really cool thing.
That's a great story we need to tell sometime, because it is. It goes against all the grain of the Mormon patriarchy. It's kind of wonderful.
It is wonderful and feminist and awesome. They just replaced the wrong fucking statue.
Right. It's proof that statues can be replaced.
Right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So there's the one at This Is the Place monument. There's one inside our Capitol building.
Right, of course.
A Brigham Young statue. And then the one that was moved is just onto church property. So that's their business. And they can do what they want with that. And I think making them defend him will show their true colors. And
Right.
I think we should, as a community, force them into that position.
Well, and we were talking about this in the patrons only content, but it's the point of this is not to erase history. In fact, we all are firm believers, I think, in the axiom that people who forget their history are doomed to repeat it. We don't want Brigham Young stricken from the history books. We just want the fucking true history to be told.
Yeah.
And
and there's a difference between telling history and, as you pointed out, Doug, venerating certain figures.
there's a difference between remembering and venerating. And we've put people like Brigham Young and Robert E. Lee at Nathan Bedford Forrest, etc. On pedestals where they do not fucking belong. And the point of them of doing that was to terrorize people.
Yeah.
Even if they did a few amazing things, guess what? Atrocities cancel out those things.
Yeah.
So you don't maybe Brigham deserved a lot of props for a lot of stuff. I think that's that's an arguable position, but who the fuck cares? He was also a monster, so you don't get to have his statue up.
Yeah, would the three of us go to sleep at night in a city that if a stranger drove into the city and looked at our monuments, they would say, this is the guy they revere.
Yep.
Right? And I don't think that's okay.
Well, and also I think a lot of those quotes, a couple of the quotes you read, Mark, I had not heard before.
Yeah.
Most of them I had, but I venture to bet that most true believing Mormons have not.
Right? Oh no, none of them have.
The version of Brigham Young, in fact, I have a DVD that was given to me as a joke gift. That was a one man play, a la kind of like a Mark Twain play, called Brother Brigham.
Like a monologue, yeah.
Yeah, and he's this kind of salt of the earth guy,
folksy,
grandfatherly, and I think that's how most Mormons conceive of Brigham Young, as this.
Right.
They venerate him because they do not know who he truly was. They are ignorant of the character of Brigham Young as he really was.
Yeah, well, we've said before on the show, to be a true believing Mormon is an exercise in knowing as little about your church's history as possible.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
and they do great with it. They do a really good job.
So what are we going to do here? It is going to be an uphill battle to get Utah to take this man's statue down. So
let's grab it and put it in the river.
It may never happen, but I think it's a conversation that needs to be had.
Take it down. Violence.
Donald Trump was the other day. This was actually back during the Charlottesville, those heady days, a couple years ago, and he was saying something like, "Well, I noticed they're tearing down Confederate statues. I wonder, is the Washington Monument next?" And it's this fear on particularly the right about the tearing down of these statues that, where does it end? Where does it end? It's like, it doesn't matter where it ends. It matters that it starts. Like we need to get this shit going.
We can
it
at
could
least
go bad, so let's do nothing.
Right, exactly. What if they tear down the wrong statue? Then what? We'll all explode.
I just, for people who Republicans in the right wing that have defunded the arts for years,
right?
It's interesting to see them rush to its defense. Because it was, for people who owned slaves and murdered people. So that's it, Brigham. Get the fuck out. I'm sick of him.
All right.
Well, thanks for that. We're all grumpy now. Let's move on.
Well, friends, that's it for this week's Zany Show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you. If you know more things about Xenu that you'd like to send in, tell us about it at howtoheretic.com.
Exactly right. And if you just got a rather staggering contract for glycol and alcohol at your glycol and alcohol shop, call and leave us a voicemail about it, 903-88-HOW-TO, which is 903-884-6986. I am also on alcohol and glycol on Twitter at howtoheretic.
And thanks always to our amazing patrons.
And thank you for Cody Layton once again for editing the show.
And thanks to all of you, dear friends, for tuning in.
Bye, friends.
Tear down a statue.